Good afternoon. Today we're going to talk about finding the missing side in similar triangles. Now, what are similar triangles? Well, similar triangles are triangles that are proportional to each other. What that means, that is, if you look at corresponding sides, that there is some scale factor or value that you can multiply against the smaller triangle to get the corresponding side's length of the larger triangle. For example, 3 corresponds to 12. Since they correspond to 12, there is some scale factor that you can multiply against 3 that will give you 12. Can anybody think about what that number might be? If you said 4, that is correct. So if I were to multiply 3 times 4, I would get 12. Now, I have a missing side, and it's the smaller side, and it needs to be multiplied by 4 to equal 20. So what number can be multiplied against 4 to get 20? That's right. That value is 5. So this missing side is equal to 5. So when you're looking at similar triangles, the first thing you want to do is try to identify the corresponding sides and then find your scale factor. So let's look at another problem. All right, let's look at 1 and 3 because those are there. What can I multiply with 1 to get to 3? If you said 3, that's correct. 1 times 3 is 3. So now I need to think some number times 3 equals 9. Can anyone think about what that might be? Well, if you said 3, that would be correct. 3 times 3 is 9. So the scale factor is going to be 3. Sometimes the scale factor is also called a multiplier. So let's look at another problem, okay? In number 3, I always look for the corresponding sides that have the two numbers. In this case, it would be 4 and 16. And I think to myself, 4 times what will give me 16? Okay? 4 times 4. So what times 4 will give me 8? All right? If you said 2, you would be correct. Let's look at one more using this method. Okay? The corresponding sides that have numbers is the 4 and the 8. So what number can I multiply against 4 to get to 8? If you said times 2, you would be correct. So now we're going to do 5 times 2 equals the missing value, because now I'm going from the smaller to the larger, and x must equal, if you said 10, that is correct. Okay, let's look at a different method. The numbers we had in problems 1 through 4 were small enough that we could do that mental math to find the multiplier. But sometimes the numbers are not as friendly, and it's a little bit more difficult to do. So let's look at setting up proportions and then solving the proportions algebraically. It is still important that you set up or identify the corresponding sides, because it's very important that as we set up our proportion, the corresponding sides are in the same location in our ratios. Okay? So in problem 5, let's mark our corresponding sides. 14 will correspond to 2, and x will correspond to 1. So when I get ready to write this equation, because a proportion is an equation, just a special kind, the ratio of the larger triangle would be 14 to x, and remember the corresponding side is 2, so in my second ratio, the 2 would go in the numerator, and it'd be 2 to 1. Once I have my proportion set up, I can now solve it by doing cross products. Remember, we multiply on the diagonal, so I'm going to do 2 times x and have 2x. And then I'm going to do 14 times 1. I'm going to clean that up so you can see it. So that's 2x equals 14. Remember, in a one-step equation, we divide both sides by 2 in this case because we are multiplying the variable by 2. So remember, undo multiplication by 2 by dividing by 2. Okay, so after you divide both sides by 2, remember 2 divided by 2 will become 1. 1 times x is x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So the missing side is equal to 7. Now if I want to check, think about what multiplier. 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. And this is how you would check your sides. Making sure that your multiplier or your scale factor is the same. And you're good to go. So let's look at the next one. So let's start with the corresponding side to 9 is x. And the corresponding side to 6 is 24. So again, when you get ready to write your proportion, you want to have either the larger triangle to the smaller triangle or the smaller triangle to the larger triangle. We're going to start this time with the smaller triangle. We're going to have 6 is to 9. And remember, the second ratio has to match the location. 6 corresponds with 24, so the second ratio should be 24 over x. Okay, at this point, we want to go ahead and do our cross products. So 6 times x is 6x. 9 times 24 is our number. Okay. Now, when I do 9 times 24, I would do that off to the side because I'm not going to be able to do that in my head. So 9 times 4 is 36, carry my 3. 9 times 2 is 18, 19, 20, 21. So that answer is 216. So 6x equals 216. Now, divide both sides by 6 because we want to undo multiply by 6. So this becomes divide 6 on both sides. 6 divided by 6 is 1, and 216 divided by 6. Again, I'm going to do that over here to the side. 6 goes into 21 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. 19, 20, 21, that's 3. Bring down your 6. 6 goes into 36 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. So, x must equal 36. Now, if I say x is equal to 36, I can check with my multiplier. 6 times 4 is 24. 9 times 4 is 36. I know I'm correct. Okay, remember what I mean. I'll write this out. What is the multiplier here? Well, it's times 4. That has to be the same multiplier here. 9 times 4 is 36, so I know I'm correct. Now, some of you might say, but Miss Pappas, isn't it easier just to do it that way? Well, if it works for you, absolutely. But sometimes it's hard to tell. So, you're going to always want to try to orient whichever method works better for you. Okay, let's try another one. First thing I do is identify corresponding sides. Okay, so I think this looks like the base and this looks like the base. Then this would be corresponding to here. So when I set up my proportion, I'm going to have 9 is to 10 as 99 is to x. And then I would go ahead and do the algebra. 9 times x equals 10 times 99. 9 times x equals 990. Divide both sides by 9. This is going to go to 1. And then this is going to become x equals 110. let's see, 1, 1, 0. Okay, let's see if that works. 9 times 11 is 99. 10 times 11 is 110. Yes, so my missing side is 110. So you might, as you're doing your problems, make sure that you circle your final answer, especially if you're doing your work like I am and it's all over your paper. You're going to want your teacher to be able to find that work. Now, this next method, or the next problem, I'm looking at it. And boy, if it doesn't look like I should probably just do some mental math here. It looks like the 10 is going to correspond to this 10, and this is going to correspond to this one. So 10 is to 10 as 100 is to x. And wow, isn't this easy? Because 10 over 10 is just 1. So in this case, just using mental math, shouldn't x equal 100? All right, let's check that. If this is equal to 100, let's see if we have a multiplier that we can look at. So 10 times 10 is 100, and 10 times 10 is 100, and so I know that's my missing side. Okay? Okay, let's look at our next set of problems. I'm going to look at each one and make a decision whether I'm going to use the scale factor or multiplier, if you will, or if I'm going to set up a proportion and solve. So let's look at number 9. It looks like 6 and 48 are going to be matched, and 5 and x will be matched. All right. Well, I know with my mental math that 6 times 8 is 48. So 5 times 8 would be 40. So the missing side here must equal 40. Okay, let's look at the next one. In number 10, it looks like 22 and 11 are corresponding sides, and 16 and x are corresponding sides. I like this one too for my mental math because I know 11 times 2 is 22. So something times 2 is 16. Well, something times 2 that is 16, that must mean x equals 8. Okay? Looking at this, it looks like the shortest side is 20, and it corresponds to the shortest side here, which is 2. So x must be corresponding to my 3. So let's think in terms of mental math. 2 times 10 equals 20. So 3 times 10 must equal 30, and the missing side must equal 30. Okay, looking at the next problem, it looks like 12 and x are corresponding to the two sides given in the other similar triangle. So 12 is going to correspond with the 60, and x also corresponds with the 60. Well, this is pretty straightforward. Using our mental math, 6 times what? 12 times what equals 60? Okay, I believe that that's 5. So what times 5 will equal this other 60. Let's try that again. Sorry. Times 5. Well, I think that would have to be pretty straightforward. That must equal 12 as well. So I like these set of problems because we simply had to use the idea of the multiplier or the scale factor. Wow, and the next set of problems, it's a little bit more challenging. The numbers are much bigger, so I'm probably going to set up proportions this time. I'm told that these are similar figures because they're not all triangles in this particular set of problems. But remember, similar figures are the same as similar triangles. That if you go from the smaller figure to the larger figure, there is some scale factor that or multiplier that you can use in every problem. So let's look at what values we have here that are easy to work with. I can see that this x is going to correspond with this 3. And looking at this, I think I like the 10 and 40 seem to be corresponding sides. And I like that because I can actually see the multiplier easier. So let's try that. I think this is 10 times what? It'd be 4. So then 3 times what? Actually 3 times 4, because we're all set up because we're going to the larger side. So x must equal 12. Now let's just check all the sides before we circle our answer. 14 times 4, if it equals 56, I can feel pretty confident that we have the right answer. 14 times 4 is 16, carry your 1, 4, 56. So yes, all the sides have the same multiplier. So I feel confident the missing side is 12. Let's look at number 14. Okay. Corresponding sides, looking at the figures, I can see clearly that x and 7 must be corresponding sides. And it looks like 4 and 36 has a multiplier of 9. 10 and 90 has a multiplier of 9. Let's see, that's got a multiplier of 9. Okay, so let's see if 14 times 9 equals 126. Oh, excuse me. Let's see, this is what we're looking for. Let me erase that. That's not the way we want to do it. We want to check, so we want to do 14 times 9. That's 36. Carry your 3. 9, 10, 11, 12. 126. Yep. So that means I'm looking at my missing side. So 4, excuse me, not 4. Let's go back to what we're looking. 7 corresponds with 7. Sorry. 7 corresponds with x. We underlined that earlier. So we need to do 7 times 9 equals our x. So x must equal 7 times 9, which is 63. So this equals 63. And let's go ahead and circle that one. All right, again, setting up the proportionality is pretty easy with some of these numbers. Okay, let's do the next two with the ratios, just so that we don't forget how to do those. Okay, so we did a couple like that. First thing I do is I find my corresponding sides. It looks like x and 11 are corresponding, and I only need one set of corresponding sides, so I'm going to use 84 and 12. All right, so let's do the large triangle. That's going to be x over 84 equals, and x corresponds with 11, so it's going to be 11 over 12. I'm going to do a cross product, so 12 times x equals 11 times 84. Now, 84 times 11. I'm going to do that arithmetic over here. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, carry 1. So I get 924, so I get 12x equals 924. Divide both sides by 12. So x must equal what? So let's see, 924 divided by 12. Let's see. 12 goes into 92. Let's see what that would be. 7 times 12, I think, is 84. That's the closest I can get there. So 7 times 12 is 84. I'm going to subtract. So subtract that from 92, and I get 8. I bring down another 4. So 12 goes into 84 7 times. All right, so x must equal 77. So x equals 77. So 11 times 7 is 77, and 12 times 7 is 84. I feel pretty good about that answer. So x must equal 77. All right, let's try it again. The corresponding side, it looks like x is going to correspond to 30, and let's do 10 and 60. So 10 corresponds to 60. I'm going to go ahead and set up the proportion. Smaller one is going to be 10 to x. 10 corresponds to 60, so 60 to 30. Let's do a cross product. So 60 times x equals 10 times 30. So 60x equals 300. Divide by 60. Divide by 60. This goes to 1. So I get x equals 5, I think. So let's double check. X equals 5. So let's see if that works. I think this is 5. That means 10 times 6 is 60. That works. 9 times 6 is 54. That works. 5 times 6 is 30. That works. So again, I can use the multiplier as my check. So this is times 6. This is times 6. And this is times 6. Since they're all times 6, I know that this must be my missing side. Okay, at this point, I really recommend that you hit pause, work the rest of the problems, and then after you've done all the problems, come back and check. So why don't you go ahead and pause now, and then come back and check. Okay, I have all the answers circled here. Notice that I used the scale factor method or the multiplier method, however you want to think of it, and identified what was the multiplier and then used it to find the missing side. Okay, here's the last 4. They've all been solved with the ratio proportion equation, but notice that I've added in the scale factor information on a couple of them just in case you used a different method. I hope this was beneficial for you. Please let me know if you need me to keep on making some of these videos. Have a great evening. Bye.